Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/entitled people, where people truly believe that they're above everybody else and that no one matters. And guys, in this episode, a Karen harasses OP who's wheelchair bound, screaming at her to get up and walk, and guys, OP gets the last laugh. The story's absolutely outrageous. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the lineup of stories today. Hit subscribe if you haven't, and as always, your story submissions can be sent or linked to this email right here. Okay, so I work at a medium-sized international airport as a police officer. When airlines have issues getting flights out, due to things outside of local agents' control like weather, we usually get a few hateful customers that we end up dealing with. And this one so far is from the top of the pile. So on this day, this airline, Directional Air, had a glitch on their systems following a storm. This caused planes across the country to be grounded, cancelled, and delayed by hours, or even days. At the ticket counter, there's a line of customers, around 60 or so, that are affected by this and patiently waiting to be rebooked. Many of them are frustrated but understanding, but there's always that one person, right? We'll call him Kevin. So this guy comes in and cuts in front of 60 people who are waiting, and then he proceeds to push a lady out of the way who's currently being helped at the counter. The woman is disabled and she's in a wheelchair, so I'll let you imagine what that's like. The man then demands to be assisted. The agent politely tells Kevin that he'll need to sit and wait his turn at the back. Kevin then yells at the agent that he's a priority passenger and A-listed. The agent then tells Kevin that he'll need to wait like everyone else, and then that's when Kevin pulls out the Karen card and demands to speak to the manager because he's very important. The other passengers at this point tell Kevin to go to the back, and he starts to argue and yells with them and gets in their faces. The manager then comes out and tells Kevin to go to the back or to leave. Kevin then doubles down and yells at the manager. At this point, the other agents have contacted me and the officers about the situation. A male passenger who's 6-something, lean and mean, steps up and gets Kevin to stop yelling at everyone and to focus on him until we arrive. When we arrive, Kevin tells us that he was polite, and it was the airline personnel yelling and cursing, and that the other passenger in the wheelchair had threatened him. Cell phone and CCTV tells another story. Kevin then insisted that all 60 or so witnesses and the footage are lying, and that he's telling the truth. The guy then tries to intimidate us by asking for our names and badge numbers and says that he knows our bosses, yada yada yada. This is common for people with nothing else to go on. The manager then tells us that Kevin will never fly with them and now he's blacklisted. Kevin's then told that he'll need to leave, and now he thinks police are the group to argue with. After given warnings to leave or be removed, Kevin continues to argue with us and he refuses to leave. He's then arrested and taken to jail. We come to find out that Kevin's the owner of a local hotel. Not like a chain like the Hilton or something like that, but a single hotel, and he thinks he has influence. Currently, he has an orange and black suit and shiny bracelets. Guys, some people really believe that what they own makes them more important than others. Like, calm down, sir, it's a frickin' hotel. You have no power at the damn airport. Like, it baffles me that some people would go to this extent, to the point of getting arrested by arguing with police and then getting blacklisted. Like, I'm shaking my head, guys. Now, to make things clear, I play Warhammer. If you don't know what that is, it's a miniature war game, and it's not cheap. My army costs just over 4,500 pounds, and after about a year and a half of painting and building, if I choose to sell it, I could make easily 7,000 pounds. So on this day, I went to a local shop for a huge match, and as I was setting up, a kid runs up and starts asking me about my army. Now the kid was around 7 or 8 years old, so I was happy to talk to him and explain, until he started picking up my models and starts to play around with them. I tell the kid to stop messing with my stuff and the kid runs off, so I thought that was it. Until the kid brings his mom to the table. I'll just call her Karen because she was a Karen. The woman begins screaming at me saying, "Why did you scream at my son? He was just looking at your toys." I tell her, well, he wasn't just looking, he was touching and being really rough. The piece he was messing around with cost me well over 150 pounds, and it is fragile. I didn't want it to break. I tell her he can watch if he wants, but he can't touch anything. It's at this point Karen says, "Fine, we'll buy these toys from you. You're a grown-ass man, and you're still playing with toys at your age? I will give you 50 pounds for all of this." I say to her, "Listen, I can't do 50 pounds. My whole set's easily over 4,000 pounds. The Karen then says, "I said I'll buy it for 50, and that's what you will take." The woman then throws a 50-pound note at me and she starts reaching for my stuff. Now, of course, anyone's reaction to someone reaching for your thousands of pounds worth of merchandise is to stop them. So I grab her wrist and yelled at the top of my lungs, "You thief! Keep your hands off my stuff." I yelled it so loud that the whole shop stared at me, and the woman and the employees ran over concerned what was going on. The employee comes over and says, "Hey, what's going on here?" I tell him, "This woman's trying to steal my army, even after I told her I won't sell it for 50 pounds. Karen then screams at me and says, "I gave you the money, so it's mine now." The employee says, "Hey, can we all calm down here please, and please step back from the table." I was happy to do this, but she looks so pissed and her kid starts to cry. Karen then screams, "Look, I bought this for my son, but this man won't give it to me after I gave him the money. He then assaulted me. I want him arrested and I'm taking all of this home with me." She then reaches for my stuff again and I move to block her and say, "Ma'am, if you want to keep that hand, you better pull it back because I will not let people steal from me and get away with it." I then turned to the employee and said, "Look, she offered me 50 pounds for my army and I said no, and then she starts trying to take my stuff after I said that, so I shouted at her." The employee says, "Okay, I hear everyone's side of the story, but she said you sold it to her and you took the money, so just give it to her." Hearing that, I just stand there looking at him as if he was out of his mind. The Karen stood there smug, so I chose to yell so everyone could hear me. I yell out, "So let me get this right. You're saying that she can steal my army because I did not accept the sale, and you're encouraging theft. How would you feel if I just stole what I want and you can't complain about it?" The store employee tells me, "Sir, please calm down." I tell him, "No, you just said she can steal my stuff. I did not agree to sell it to her." At this point, the manager comes out and asks, "Hey, what's going on? Why is everyone shouting?" The manager then walks up to me, Karen, and the employee, and he asked us what's going on. As the employee explained everything, the manager says, "What is wrong with you?" He then turns to me and says, "Sir, did you sell her anything?" I tell him no. The manager then says, "Ma'am, he said no, so leave him alone. Don't touch his stuff, please." That's when Karen says, "No, I bought this for my son, so I will take what's mine. Tell him to take the money I gave him." The manager then says, "Ma'am, please stop shouting or I'm gonna have to call the police." The next thing I see is Karen walking out, dragging her son behind her, still crying. The manager did apologize to me about what happened, but I had to make it clear that I'm never coming back after this, as I can no longer trust his staff after this event. Man, I will never get over how confident Karens are when they want something, guys. But I gave him 50 bucks for something that was worth well over 7,000, so it's now mine. Make him take the 50 bucks. Oh, if only the world worked like that, right? We'd all have a lot more things. Alright, so for some context, I'm a female who's 26 years old. I was 22 when this story takes place, back in the good old pre-pandemic days. My mother and I had been going through a seemingly endless chain of unfortunate events, the latest of which was the slip and fall accident in an icy parking lot. It resulted in a broken knee and subsequent surgery to pin the chunk of tibia back in place. This left me wheelchair bound, and due to the decade of bad luck my family's been having, including loss of loved ones, my mother losing her job, homelessness, years struggling with unemployment and poverty, and both of us getting hit by cars in goddamn crosswalks, I wasn't really in the best place mentally. I was struggling with depression and just wanted a day to relax and clear my head at the local library. So my mom wheels me to the nearby bus stop for what we hoped to the powers that be would just be a normal routine ride to the library. Alas, that wasn't meant to be. For who was sitting in her own high-backed wheelchair, loaded down with bags, but the town Karen. Now, this old hag was likely somewhere between her late 70s, and she was the dictionary definition of her title. She was rude, entitled, and she was clearly shameless, as she always dressed like a cheap stripper when going to family-friendly places. She was also a nightmare to be around. The Karen would also verbally harass anything with a pulse, and I do mean anything. Kids, adults, service animals, regular pets in travel cages on their way to the vet. Not even drivers were safe from her vile treatment. The woman was especially cruel to people with disabilities. It didn't matter if it was physical or mental, and unlike me, she could walk just fine. The woman's chair was just for show. Now, buses in my state are equipped to carry 2 standard wheelchairs at a time. Unfortunately for me, due to my being plus-sized and needing a wheelchair that would accommodate my wider hips, maneuvering was something of a challenge. We were able to get me onto the bus, but when we tried to turn the chair around so I'd be facing forward, the footrest supporting my injured leg kept bumping into the back of her chair. The Karen then snarls at me screaming, "Stop damaging private property! I'll sue you if there's damage to my wheelchair," as if it were my fault that the bus wasn't designed to fit a plus-size wheelchair. Now, trying to keep things from escalating, my mom asked, "Well, what do you suggest we do?" Karen then says, "Make her walk." Now, I had strict orders from my doctor and the surgeon to not put any weight on that knee until 2 months after surgery, and only one's passed so far. Now, I did try to explain that, but as soon as I open my mouth to say my knee is broken, she raises her voice and yells loud enough that my neighbors could hear her from the apartment mailbox. The Karen screams, "I don't care if your knee's broken. Get up and walk." Now, I'll admit here that I snapped, and I probably could have worded what I said next better, but I was sick of this old hag's BS. So I say, "And what about you? You sorry excuse for a woman. I'm in agony all hours, and you don't see me bitching at everyone who minorly inconveniences me. You don't see me threatening lawsuits at everyone who annoys me, or dressing like a drunken slut where children can see. Shut your disgusting old mouth and learn some human decency. You are the absolute worst excuse for a human being that I've ever had the displeasure of meeting. And I look forward to the day your old age catches up with you so I can do a merry jig on your grave. Do not talk to me ever again." The Karen just scoffs at me, but thankfully she said nothing else. The driver secures my wheelchair, and the ride to the library was spent in silence. As soon as we got off the bus and inside the library, I called transit and reported her for harassment. It seems that was the straw that broke the camel's back though, because I've never seen her on any bus in my county since. My leg eventually healed up, and after months of physical therapy, I no longer need the wheelchair. As for Karen, I found her obituary in the news about 3 months into the pandemic. Apparently she got the big sick from an asymptomatic client. Once the pandemic ended, I tracked down her grave at the local cemetery, and I did a little victory dance, just like I said I would. Does that make me an awful person for actually dancing on the grave of such a horrible woman? Maybe, maybe not, as I don't really care anymore. I'm just glad there's one less Karen in the world. I hope she's burning in a bad place, enduring the same torment she inflicted on everyone. Everyone that was unfortunate to be in spitting distance of her. I can only hope that I'll be a part of her punishment when my time comes. I honestly can't say I expected that outcome. And I personally would never, ever do a happy dance on anyone's grave. But to each their own, right? Like, if you felt that was necessary, hey, you do you. So yeah, thank you, Jacky, for that story submission, and I'm glad to hear that your leg healed up well enough for you to be able to do that victory dance. Okay, so my husband used to be my boss. About 9 years ago, I started working as his assistant. We spent about 2.5 years ignoring our mutual attraction until we gave in. We then went to HR, who reassigned me, and the whole thing was strictly above board from the time we began dating. I got pregnant about a year later, and my husband and I decided to just get married. While we'd only been dating for about 1.5 years, we knew each other completely, loved each other, lived together, and there was a baby on the way. We knew how it would look, but I had to leave the company anyway due to problems with my new boss. So we did not anticipate this causing any issues, except with my parents. My parents are 62 and 57, and they've always been overprotective. I knew they wouldn't like me dating my boss, so I hadn't told them, but I knew I had to tell them if I wanted them at my wedding. We decided to be mostly honest with them about how it was strictly professional until it wasn't. How the second it got unprofessional, we went to HR. I told them how he had never taken advantage of me, but now we wanted to get married and we wanted them there. We didn't mention the baby because I felt giving them that information in addition to the rest all at once would just break them. I was only about 4 months along when the wedding happened, so the bump was easily hidden by a flowy dress. The wedding itself went off without a hitch, and apart from my mother pulling me to the bathroom shortly before the ceremony to ask if I was sure about this, which I said I was, my parents seemed to take it well. The ceremony and reception were at 2 different venues, and we had to travel from one to the other, and my parents never arrived at the reception. I called them and got ignored, and then my brother called them and they told him they were going home. Now I don't remember the exact reason they gave, but it amounted to them being tired and uncomfortable. I did try contacting them after the wedding, but I found out that I was blocked on everything except for email. which I used to send them a long letter, essentially saying that I'm an adult who made an adult choice and I hope they can respect it. 5 years later, I've not heard from my parents since the wedding. My husband and I are not big on social media, but I recently posted something for the 5th anniversary, in which I mentioned we have 2 kids and a third on the way. Within a month of making the post, my parents left a voicemail saying they saw the post, and they had no idea they had grandchildren previously, and now they want to meet them. I haven't responded, but there's been a few follow-ups since asking why I haven't. I don't know what to do, but my gut instinct is that 5 years way too long, and it's about the kids, not about them respecting my choices or relationship. However, I can't help but feel that I'm being unfair, and my brother does agree, because I told him in my email if they could learn to respect my choice and my marriage eventually, then we could talk. And now I'm retroactively applying a time limit. I also can't find a way to work this in organically, but my husband is not white. I am, as are my parents. I don't think it's a race thing or my parents are racist, and neither does my husband, and we don't understand why they would want to meet our mixed race children if they were racist, but this element is still gnawing at me. So should I reach out to them, and if I did, how would we go about rebuilding the relationship? Okay guys, so before you guys get ready to give your opinions, OP does come back with a wild update that says, I asked to talk yesterday. We were on Zoom within an hour. It was my parents and me and my husband. They asked to see the kids, and I said they could see them eventually, dependent on them earning our trust and convincing us that they were going to be positive additions to the kids' lives. They asked to start by reading me a letter that they claimed to have written on my wedding day. It said they were uncomfortable with me marrying my former boss, as they thought he took advantage of me, so they left between the wedding and reception to avoid a scene. But they wanted to know that they were here for me despite their issues with him. They then added that they would have sent this to me the morning after my wedding. But then I sent my email about them needing to respect my choices, and they were so ashamed that they couldn't bring themselves to send theirs. Seeing my anniversary post made them realize how much they've missed in 5 years, and they really don't want to miss anymore. I did have some questions, like what the big deal was with me marrying my former boss. They said it wasn't what they had in mind for my wedding day and my future spouse. I then asked why they even came to my wedding at all if they didn't support the marriage, and my dad responded that he wanted to walk his daughter down the aisle as it was the only chance he'd get. Now, the way it was phrased implied that they had intentionally only come to the wedding so he could give me away, and he always planned to leave halfway. And because he said my daughter and didn't talk to me directly, it was pretty clear that he was thinking about my older sister, who passed away. My husband caught that too, and he said if they were talking about me that they should address me directly, and then he added that if they planned to leave, they should have told us as we wouldn't have invited them. And the fact that they waited 5 years to reach out was gonna take more reasons than shame, as a father, he doesn't understand how they could go ignoring their daughter for years, and only get back in touch when we had kids. It was at that point my dad snapped that he wasn't gonna take this from a cushy, which was a slur meaning dark-skinned. My mother immediately tried to run damage control, but I ended the call. They've since messaged me several times trying to explain that calling my husband a racial slur wasn't indicative of a racist attitude, and he would have never said that in front of my kids, so they should still get to meet them. I've spent 5 whole years wondering why they were so offended by me marrying my boss, that it earned no contact for half a decade. And it turns out that they're just racist, and it's almost nice to find out. If it was just the boss thing, I would have sympathy for them, and we might even be able to reconcile. But with this, it's now just a question of am I going to knowingly expose my mixed-race children to a couple of racists, which I'm obviously not going to do. Guys, I find it so surprising that their racism caused them to basically disown their daughter on her wedding day, and now they're wanting to come back into OP's lives because of her kids. And guys, I understand that grandparents would love to get to know their grandkids, but a lot of people are commenting saying that OP's parents are probably wanting to see the kids first, to do a skin color check before getting involved in their lives. Now, regardless if that's their intentions or not, listen, in the end, I'm glad OP protected her kids from the racist grandparents. Like, it's gotta be so hard to find out that your parents don't have the character that you assumed. Totally unreal though. Guys, let me know what you guys think. If you're in OP's shoes, are you letting your parents see and potentially meeting your kids after 5 long years of no contact? And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /Entitled People. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's crazy stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. If you missed the last episode on the channel, I'm gonna link it right here. A gangster Karen threatens OP over the phone, and it does not go well for her. Guys, if you missed it, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.